Shouty Brain.
Hello, welcome to the Shouty Brain Podcast. My name is Trevor Holland, and this is episode 1, and I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants here, so please forgive me. I thought I'd give you a little bit of an introduction episode first before I really kick off the full series. Just to give you a bit of an insight into who I am and what this podcast is and what you should expect from it. So my whole deal is that I'm 42 years of age, and I've, in the last few weeks, been diagnosed with autism. I was diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 28, but it's taken me this long to get the autism diagnosis as well. And it's kind of thrown me through a loop a little bit. Although I have been the way I am my whole life, I feel that somehow everything's changed overnight, and I'm coming to terms with the realization of what I am and trying to work out in actual fact what I am. And what I am, in fact, is disabled. And that's quite a thing to wrap your head around, especially when ostensibly you're high functioning, in the biggest inverted commas in the world, because it's not really a term that I particularly like. So what I'm going to be doing going forward is I'm going to be speaking to various different people from different walks of life, all of whom have one thing in common, and that is that they're all neurodiverse, either ADHD, autistic, or ADHD. And the point of doing that is to try and find out what makes people tick, and how they navigate through a world that isn't really designed for them. You know, part of what I am is I've got quite a small network. I've got quite a small circle of friends, which is not an uncommon situation for people like me to be in. And it's not that I can't make friends. It's that I find it incredibly difficult to maintain friendships. I tend to keep people at arm's length, if I'm being honest. I've got a few friends in my life, but I hardly ever speak to them. You know, my best friend, for example, I've known him for maybe 30 years at this point. We're like brothers. I love him to pieces. But I can say now, I haven't seen the guy in over a decade. I can't even remember how many children he's got because I haven't met any of them. Our relationship at the moment comprises of the occasional text exchange, and that's basically as far as it goes. And that's pretty much all I'm capable of at this point. The point I'm making is that not only do I not have many friends, I really don't know that many people that are neurodiverse. So what I'm trying to build here is a little bit of a community. This podcast is going to be as much about me learning about this situation as it is learning about other people. And just being brutal and honest about what it's actually like to live like this and how other people do it. Because I'm not alone here. There are so many people out there who are either identifying as neurodiverse or have been diagnosed either recently or a long time ago. But the world, for people like us, can be an incredibly lonely and intimidating, frustrating place. So the point of this podcast is to try and open that conversation up a little bit. It's going to be fun. You know, we're going to have a laugh. We're going to take the piss out of ourselves. But we're also going to confront some probably quite difficult topics, because that's what this is all about. This is about talking and being honest. And sometimes you've got to confront those difficult conversations to move forward. You know, so that's really the point of what we're trying to do here. So this episode is really more of an icebreaker, to give you an idea of what's going to be going on. I'm not always going to be sitting here on my own rambling. As I said, I'm going to have guests quite regularly, and they're going to be from all different types of walks of life, all with neurodiversity and with some hopefully interesting stories to share. So I think this is going to end up being a therapy session for me as well, to be honest, because I'm trying to wrap my head around this whole thing, make sense of things that have been present in my life for 42 years, and try and live the rest of my life in a maybe a slightly different way, because I've been so apologetic and fawning and a habitual people pleaser my whole life because I didn't want to upset the apple cart or rock the boat or whatever other bloody cliche phrase you can think of for it. But I've been wearing a mask my whole life. Those in the know will know, but the concept of masking is that a lot of what you do as an autistic person or someone with ADHD or both is you will put on a mask day to day in order to appease people or to not expose yourself too much to ridicule or to scrutiny. And I've realized quite recently that my mask has been stuck steadfast onto my face my whole life, to the extent to which I barely even know what my actual face looks like without the mask. I've realized that so much of my life, my public life, has been performative. So much of it. Every single interaction I've had with a human being, both before, during, and after, has been so heavily rehearsed and planned and then dwelled upon afterwards for decades if I don't feel like it's gone quite right. Every nuance of every conversation. How long do I maintain eye contact for? What's the best facial expression to use around this person when that person says that thing? One of the misconceptions about autism is that people can lack empathy, and I think in a lot of cases that is absolutely not the case. I would consider myself incredibly empathetic, and the reason for that is because I feel everything so intensely, and because a lot of the social interaction side of things never came naturally to me, I, by virtue of that, became an incredibly observant person. I studied people and their interactions so closely. I became a student of the human condition. And something I said in my blog recently is that I attributed my kind of formative years to Third Rock from the Sun, where you've got an alien or a group of aliens who are trying to assimilate into humankind by learning and watching and being confused by all the things that people do. And I became very good at picking up those signals because I was studying them so closely. In actual fact, one of the reasons it's taken me so long to be diagnosed with autism is because it was initially rejected as an idea on the basis that I was capable of engaging with people, that I was capable of having a meaningful conversation and showing emotion and having a sense of humor and maintaining a reasonable amount of eye contact. I was roundly rejected for the idea of having autism for those reasons. That was quite a while ago, and things have changed since then in terms of understanding. But what really frustrated me is that, yes, I do those things. A lot of us do. But we do them because we've learned how to do them through fastidious studying of the human condition. We don't do it because it comes naturally to us. We've had to work so hard to learn how to do those things. And to maintain doing those things is so incredibly draining and exhausting. I can't tell you, man, I am fucking tired. That would be my prevailing state, is knackered. I'm always knackered because I'm always working at everything. And it's an invisible struggle, right? It's the cliche duck on the pond. You know, you look like you're just coasting through life when actually you are just constantly working yourself to death just to try and be at what you perceive as the same level as everyone around you. Now, listen, I should tell you at this point, I know I'm rambling, I'm meandering. That's going to be the thing. I'm going to be doing that. I'm hoping that in between my flights of fancy and nonsensical tangents that I'm going to make some salient points, and you're just going to have to bear with me because, I'm disabled, mate. Fuck you. but that has kind of brings me on to one of the points I want to make. The whole concept of unmasking. I mentioned that I've been wearing a mask my whole life and that I barely know what I actually am underneath it. But it's an important step to take, to try and take that mask off and try and be your true self, because I've realized how unsustainable it is to constantly have the mask on, because it's so exhausting mentally and emotionally to constantly be performing. I've realized that in my work, because I push myself really hard at work just to keep up, and I burn myself out to the point where I don't want to speak to anyone, or I don't want to do anything. I just want to shut myself away until my batteries start to recharge. So what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to learn to appease people less. I'm trying to learn to not be such a people pleaser and to actually realize, without trying to be selfish about it, that it's not up to me to make you feel more comfortable around me. It's up to you to accommodate me and accept me. And that's a difficult thing to do for somebody who spent their whole life trying to please everybody. And I don't want to do it in a fuck you kind of way, but I do need to be kind to myself and be like, you know what? I don't do this kind of thing very well, or I don't want to do this thing. I'm not going to do this thing. I'm disabled, and there are certain accommodations that I would expect you to make. That's going to be a tricky one. So one of those things is the fact that I might ramble on, and I'll just let it happen and stop trying to overthink it so much that I end up second guessing everything that I do. And again, that kind of feels like I'm rewriting my whole personality, because the whole thing's incredibly confusing and it's very early days. Another thing I said in my blog is that although I've been autistic my whole life, I feel as though I've only been autistic for a few weeks, because that's when I was diagnosed. And from the outside, nothing has changed, but everything has changed, because everything now has a definition and a meaning and something that I can try to understand. But man, it's been a really weird few weeks learning that about me. And I hear from a lot of people, when I say people, I don't speak to anyone, people that I see online talking, that when they are diagnosed with autism, they feel as though they become more autistic as a result. And that's an interesting concept, and I don't think that's, I'm not saying it's not true, but I think what's more the case is that you're aware of what the meaning is of the things that you're doing. So you're becoming more aware of them and more cognizant, and you're analyzing your own behavior a little bit more because you're attributing it to something else. But I can definitely sympathize with it, because I feel super autistic now, whereas before I was a guy who thought I might be on the spectrum somewhere here. But now I'm fully in. I am fully in. It's weird. It really is. Because you think about everything you've done in your life and everything the journey you've been on, and realize where you are now, and think, oh yeah, no wonder. And another thing about being kind to yourself, and me being kind to myself, is just accepting the fact, you know what? I don't need to answer to anybody here. My life has been fucking hard. It has been hard work, hard graft, and it continues to be. It's rough, man. And I'm not comparing my experiences to anyone else, people with physical disabilities, people with other things going on in their lives, because people are on their own journey. And it's not for me or for anyone else to judge anyone else's journey and try and compare them in terms of what's more severe and what's less severe, and what you need to man up and get over. I have had a fucking difficult life up till now. And I need to be kind to myself about it, because I have spent my life comparing myself to everyone else and wondering why I'm not there. Why am I 42 and don't have a mortgage? Why am I 42 and have a career, but not one that I've had for a long time? Why do I find it so difficult to be in the supermarket when everyone's talking? Why does that thing smell so strong? Why does everything sound so loud? Why am I always so tired? Why am I exhausted? Why am I angry all the time? Why am I so frustrated that I could just demolish my own house? Why? Because I'm disabled. Because the world wasn't designed for me. Because I'm trying to fit a round peg into a square hole, or whatever the fucking phrase is. And that's all right. It's okay. It's not easy. It's okay to be a bit broken. But that is why we're doing this, right? This is why I'm doing this podcast, because I'm wanting anyone who might be in a similar position to me to feel all right about what they're going through, because guess what? I am as well. And it's rough, man. And that's why I want to speak to as many people as I can to increase my own understanding, but also just to get a conversation going. We can compare war stories about how the world works for us, what our strategies are. And it's going to be interesting, and I'm going to really enjoy it. So you might argue that this podcast is somewhat of a selfish endeavor because I'm using it as an opportunity to have a bit of therapy. But you know what? Call it what you want. Call it therapy, call it a midlife crisis. I don't give a shit. I want to do a podcast about being neurodiverse because I am, and I want other people to have a place to go to listen to honest conversations and maybe learn a little bit about themselves. And I want to learn about other people. Sue me, motherfucker. So that's what I'm going to do. So this is it. This is what Shouty Brain is all about. I called it Shouty Brain for obvious reasons, because I'm the owner of a brain that never shuts the fuck up. So this is what it is. I've got a website. It's called shoutybrain.com. You go there, you'll see various different bits and bobs that I do. You'll see links to my social media. I've got an Instagram and a Facebook page where I share various bits and pieces, little bits of poetry, little doodles, drawings. I've got a Substack as well. That's linked in my website. This podcast is going to be audio and visual, so you may be seeing it on YouTube. If you're listening to the audio version of it, you can go to my YouTube channel to see the visual. If you want to see my face while I'm talking to you, I can understand entirely if you don't want to do that, because, why would you? It might be more interesting when I've got other guests on there, because you can actually have a little insight into the conversation. So if you go to shoutybrain.com, you'll have links to all of that. You'll be able to subscribe to my Substack. You'll be able to subscribe to the podcast, and you'll be able to subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on my social media channels. But listen, this is all a little bit new to me. I'm not a Luddite, but, I'm a bit shit at this, and I'm going to be a little bit of a maverick about it. This is me doing a podcast, so this is it. Hope you enjoy it. I'm going to have a lovely time doing it. You might have even noticed in the last, 20 minutes since I started this episode, I'm being much more chatty than I was, because I was being awkward as shit at the beginning because I didn't know what to say. And now I do know what to say. And it's coming to an end in a minute. So great timing, Trev, you know what I mean? But this is what it's going to be. I'm not going to overly edit. I'll be cutting out some of the more extraneous, like pauses and brain farts. But for the most part, it's going to be as is, It's not going to be neat and tidy. It's going to be rough. It's going to be messy. It's going to be real. And that's all I really want to do. This is the reality. Let's not try and sugarcoat it. Let's not try and make it look a little bit more fancy and make it more palatable, because that's not what the world is. The world is lovely and beautiful and fascinating, but also scary and terrible and horrible. So let's just be honest about what it is. It's not fuck about. You know what I mean? So this is episode 1. I'm going to be probably I am going to be posting a new episode every Thursday. All right. So if you subscribe, you'll get a new podcast every Thursday, and most of them are going to involve me speaking to a guest, but others are going to be solo ones like this. If you do go to my website, you can contact me through there as well. I'd love to hear from you. If you have things that you want to share with me, your own stories, your own things, or you have ideas for people that you'd like me to have on the podcast and speak to, then certainly do that on there. And also, if you've got things that you want me to look into or bring up or talk about, more than happy to do that. So please get in touch. I look forward to hearing from you. So I hope you enjoyed this first episode. A little bit rough and ready, as I said, but take care of yourselves. I'll speak to you all next week when I'll have a very special guest talking about having shouty brains. All right. Take care, guys.